Good morning, Russell here, dog walking author. Got Augie here with me today and Lulu. Today I thought I'd get a deeper dive into some of the writing rules. And the first one I thought I'd tackle is write what you know. We've all heard this rule, and the first thing I thought I'd talk about is why is this even contentious? Why do people seem to get upset about it? Well, my interpretation of why people get upset is they take the rule too literally. So they read it at face value, write what you know. Oh, so that means I can't write a fantasy story because I've never met an elf? Oh, that means I can't write a detective novel because I've never been a detective? I guess horror movies are out or horror novels are out because I've never killed anyone. Well, that's dumb. Guess I can't hardly write about anything except sitting in my office, typing on my computer in my cubicle. Well, that is not the intent of the rule. It is not to be taken completely literally. Of course you can write about things you have not experienced firsthand. People do it all the time and do it successfully. It just means that if you're going to do that, you need to do your due diligence, your due research, and so that you can know accurately, or as accurately as you can, what the story you're writing entails. Now, I always like to say, I know fantasy. Well, of course, I've never slain a dragon. I've never cast a spell. But you know what? I grew up reading Tolkien. I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons. I grew up watching every fantasy movie and TV show that came out. So when I say I know fantasy, but it's not through any direct experience with fantasy. See what I'm trying to say here? And you can look at historical novels or even textbooks, right? How are people still writing about ancient civilizations? Nobody's experienced those civilizations who are here on Earth today, yet people still write about them. How? Because they're doing their research. They're doing their due diligence. So that's case in point. Just because you have not experienced something personally does not mean you can't write about it. It's just incumbent on you to do your research to get it accurate. I see people all the time talking about can I write a book set in New York City if I've never lived there? Of course you can, but you better get out some maps of New York, better do your research, better learn some history if you're going to try to tackle that. Now, would it probably be easier to set the story in your hometown that you're familiar with? Probably, but you're not precluded from writing someplace else as long as you do your research. Now, the second part of write what you know that's deeper is that write what you know is more about an emotional context. We've all had experiences that have moved us, terrified us, electrified us, enthralled us, thrilled us. We've been happy, sad, mad, and all kinds of different experiences. You can use those experiences, those emotions you've had, and pour them into your story. Of course, they don't have to be the same setting, right? But the emotion can be captured. That way you'll be able to hook the reader on a deeper level. So think about a time you've been terrified, right? It doesn't have to be the same experience that your character is experiencing in the book, but you can write from an emotional place that could be applicable to your character to convey that emotion of sheer terror or fear. Same thing with elation or joy. We've all had moments where we're really happy about something. That's also what it talks about when it says, write what you know. That's writing from that emotional place of things you've experienced. Now, I said you could do your research and use your emotional context, and that is true. Now, I will say, if you can include other experiences you've had that are reality and you can put it in your writing, that's even better. So I'll give you a couple examples. Just in the last few years, my youngest daughter has taken up horseback riding. So we've been taking her to the stables every week. I even took some lessons for about 6 months. I'm not going to say I became a great horseman, but I definitely learned stuff. So being around the stables, riding the horses myself, has given me a much deeper and greater appreciation of what it's like being around these animals. Things like how much your legs work and how much you use them when you're on a horse. You see these riders who are riding horses who've been doing it all their life, and it looks so graceful and effortless, but you don't realize how much they're working their legs, for example, to keep their balance on these horses. When you're at the stable, you're not thinking necessarily about all the different smells of the horse manure and the hay and the flies that are buzzing around because of all that. Things like that. Also, my daughter and I have gotten into archery. And so I have a much deeper appreciation now for what it is when I watch people in movies shooting arrows and such. And I just laugh now and go, yeah, that's not how it works. So those are experiences I can put into a story that I have now lived or experienced. And that does enrich the story beyond just reading about it, for example. Another aspect, and this is in Relentless Blades, my book, I have my two main characters, Vidge and Grim, both have difficult, toxic relationships with their fathers. Now, I grew up with a father who loved me to death, and I loved him. Greatest father on earth. I love him to death. No issues. But 3 of my 4 best friends growing up had horrible relationships with their fathers. All three of them were verbally abusive. One was physically abusive. All of them were terrible fathers. And so although I did not experience that personally, I was around it, and it influenced how I wrote about the characters Vidge and Grim and the relationships they have with their awful fathers. So to conclude this video, I'll just say, write what you know is not literal. Don't interpret it literally. Yes, you can write about things that you've not personally experienced, but do your research. But do try to find areas of your emotional experiences that you can work into your stories, and that's only going to make them stronger. Anyway, hope this is helpful. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.